Skoda.
Welcome back. The spotlight is shifting to a very small island in the Persian Gulf that could shape the future of the Iran war, and we're talking about Kharg Island. This island is not just another patch of land, it is Iran's oil lifeline. Most of Iran's crude exports pass through Kharg before being shipped across the world, which means any strike on Kharg does not just hurt Iran's economy, it sends shockwaves across global energy markets. Kharg Island is a small rocky outcrop just 15 nautical miles off the coast of Iran. Despite its size, it is one of the most critical pieces of Iran's energy infrastructure. The US striking this small but vital island in the northern Gulf is almost like going for Iran's economic jugular vein. 90% of Iran's crude oil comes through a terminal on the island, transported through pipelines from the mainland. Very large tankers capable of carrying up to 85 million gallons of oil are able to come up to the island's long jetties to pick up the oil. The tankers then come back down the Gulf and out of the Strait of Hormuz to China, the main buyer of Iranian oil. And that is exactly why China is watching the situation with growing concerns. Even as the Kharg Island was attacked, targeted by the US, you had petrol pumps in China flooded with people flocking to these fuel stations. China is the world's largest crude importer and also the biggest buyer of Iranian oil. In fact, a massive share of Iran's exported crude ultimately ends up in Chinese refineries. Reports suggest China imports around 1.38 million barrels of Iranian oil per day in 2025. That makes Beijing deeply dependent on the flow of oil coming through Kharg Island. So, when the United States targets or threatens Iran's main oil terminal, the impact is not just limited to Tehran. It threatens supply chains, pushes oil prices higher, and directly affects China's energy security. Reports suggest that US President Donald Trump is weighing the possibility of seizing Iran's Kharg Island. However, such an operation would require US troops on the ground, raising the risk of Iranian retaliation against oil facilities and pipelines across Gulf countries. And the big question, if the conflict escalates further, how much of stakes could Kharg really hold in the battle of narratives? I'm being joined by Ujjwal Singh Bhatia, who's a former ambassador to WTO, Major General Sudhakar Ji, who's a defense and strategy expert, as well as Professor Swaran Singh, who's with the School of International Studies in JNU. Thank you very much, all three of you. Well, first, straight to you, Professor Swaran Singh. Is this about oil for you? Is this about China for you? Is this about Iran for you? Is this about US doing a completely wrong calculation at its front? What are we really looking at when Donald Trump says we're going to seize the crown jewel of Iran?
I think, Sneha, all four things are connected and right. There is, of course, ultimately a kind of competition between China and the United States where capturing maximum oil is a strategy that President Trump is adopting because China is enormously dependent on oil. And Iran is an unusual, not just a resource for energy, but a strategic partner as far as China is concerned. So that makes partly, Iran also a target, which also is target for many other reasons, for regime change, for nuclear weapon program, and so on. Fundamentally, what makes Kharg now the focus, I think, is a larger change in war fighting strategy on both sides. Initially, trying to do massive strikes, assuming that other side is going to capitulate in response. So, United States had massive strikes on Iran. Iran opened up the war to the whole region. Now, both sides are adopting calibrated strategy, where Iran is, for example, making public announcement that it's not going to attack neighbors unless attacks come from those destinations into Iran. And now also, saying Hormuz is open to everybody other than two countries, therefore denying President Trump opportunity to build global coalition, and we notice other countries are showing reluctance. Likewise, I think Kharg is becoming important focus, where you notice the strikes only happened on military targets, 90 military targets, leaving the lifeline, as you mentioned, of this being the hub of oil exports intact. Again, creating incentives and anxieties for Tehran. So,
That's true.
carefully calibrating selective weaponization of attacks and assets is what we are seeing now, and that is likely to continue for several more days, I suppose.
Major General Sudhakarji, come in. We'll take it from where we've just had Swaran Singh leave it. A very simple thing. So you have had US saying that there have been precision strikes on 90 military establishment, and then you have a tiny part in this Kharg Islands which still stays standing. At least that's what Iran claims at this point, and that's where you have bulk of these oil pipelines and so on and so forth. Now, here's a very simple question. Netanyahu has gone ahead and said today, US or we are not interested in invading Iran. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump saying, we're going to seize the crown jewel of Iran. Contradictory statements. How much of this is really towards foot on the ground, boots on the ground, because it's going to change the entire war front for that matter?
Good evening, Sneha. Thank you for inviting me for your show, and must compliment you for framing the question very well. It's been more than adequately researched, and you have put the finger on the major issue. The response I have for this question is, first and foremost thing, we have to understand the bigger picture. The bigger picture is not what we think it to be. The bigger picture is, for the first time, the national security strategy, which was oriented towards making China as number one enemy, has taken a sudden and a clean departure from that orientation, and appears to have given a free hand to China to do as you like for capture of Taiwan. Disregarding the TRA 1979, they may not have referred to the way I am expressing, but the expressions are indicative of that. But they have also indicated, you please reduce your dominance, do not continue with the activity across the Atlantic the way it is to happen. And we would like to restore our Monroe Doctrine, now call it a Dunroe Doctrine. That is one. Second point that has happened is, Russia has been given a clear indication that the G8 status will be restored, number one. Number two, it will be brought back, reintegrated with the ecosystem of the geopolitics of the leading economies. Number three, the hidden agenda is to pull back Russia from the deep embrace with China. Okay, that is the second. The third point, which is actually silent, is what is happening on ground now. What is happening on ground? The governor and the chairperson of the Federal Reserve of USA have time to time, for past several years, at a regular interval, they have been saying very loud statements that if USA has to remain as a sustainable and functional and efficient superpower, maintain its authority and supremacy, there has to be a steady only 1% was being harnessed or being drilled. Out of 1%, 86% is to go to China, and whether indirectly, directly, knowingly or inadvertently, the price spike is taking place. It a pipe dream. It has been done in the past. It will be done in future as well.
Okay.
Why bringing out this point is, last but not the least, if you give me one more minute,
Sure.
you raised a point about the island. The geography you have very correctly, military-like description you have given. I must compliment you and your team. What needs to be understood is that it is about 450 kilometers away from the Strait of Hormuz. It is not bang on the Strait of Hormuz. It is aligned closer to Kuwait. It is where the Persian Gulf is actually taking a cone. It forms a cone.
Yes.
It is 450 kilometers away. That means that much of distance has to be traversed. You have beautifully covered that the pipelines have been laid and they are being actually supplied through pipeline to the mainland, and from mainland they are being loaded onto the containers or onto the vessels, and then the vessels are moving out. 90%, what you have missed out is 90% of daily production from here, or maybe you might have covered if I have missed it out from my side, is being bought by China
That's
at a
true.
discounted price, and that too in a non-dollar currency. And a basic aim, when America is planning something and Netanyahu is saying something else, there is a discrepancy in their outlook and the statement. America is very clear. It wants to have, number one, a clean exit, which they did not have till now. They neither had an entry point nor an exit point. They had no political objective. But in hindsight, they have decided to have an exit, and the exit is going to be capture of Kharg Island. Whether it is feasible or not, it may lead to nuclear war. Just mark my words, it may lead to a very serious escalation of conflict if it is not handled and managed well. Because this is the lifeline of Iran to survive as a country.
Absolutely. Ujjwal Singh Bhatia, if I can get you in, I mean, look at what Major General Sudhakar ji has said. If it's not handled deftly, this could be a massive escalation, including nuclear war for that matter. But here's also the heart of the question, Ujjwal Singh Bhatia. US is already facing a huge challenge when it comes to perceptions. With its navies, many people question why is US so scared of sending its warships to the Strait of Hormuz. US may say it was none of our business. Well, the fact is that that's where US is one of the countries which started it all as well. What I'm trying to ask you at this point is, Ujjwal Singh Bhatia, what happens in Kharg could also be a major reason for US or a major motivation for US to flex its might and change this perception, but it could threaten the entire global economy.
Well, the exclusion of Kharg's oil infrastructure from the attacks on Kharg over the weekend, there were two considerations for that.
Okay.
The first was that the key negotiating issue for the United States is removing the stranglehold of Iran over Hormuz. The second is the impact an attack on Kharg would have on the global economy by ramping up oil prices. Now, I would think that the United States and Mr. Trump, they are quite keen to exit this war, which they find they cannot win. But they can only get an off-ramp if the Hormuz stranglehold is removed. And therefore, the threatened attack on Kharg oil infrastructure is part of that arm-twisting tactic. Let me also say that if there is such an attack, the implications for the world would be very, very serious. Because before the conflict started, And
Ujjwal Singh Bhatia, sorry to interrupt you. When you say the consequences, often people talk about China alone, the kind of oil that is bought from these Kharg Islands, where is it exported to, who imports it? But it's not just about Russia, China or Iran. Stakes are high for countries that don't even have trade dealings with Iran for that matter.
Well, yes, exactly. I think, let me stick to the region. The traffic which passes through Hormuz, something like 80 to 90% of the oil and gas flows to Asian ports. So the implications for the blockage of Hormuz are inordinately borne by Asian countries like India, who are not at all involved in this war. And I think this is a very important issue. Now, going back to Iran, if God forbid the oil infrastructure of Kharg is attacked, this would imply that the stakes have risen enormously. Before the conflict started, Iran was negotiating to prevent the attack on Iran. Now that attack has taken place and its top leadership has been eliminated, the Iranians have no such compunctions of raising the ante themselves. Now, what could Iran do in that case? I think it would first of all attack with more energy the US bases in the Gulf. It would attack the oil infrastructure in the Gulf, including the Abqaiq facility of Saudis, which goes into the Red Sea. It could motivate the Houthis, who have been quiet for some time, to start their activities on the Red Sea side. So there is plenty that Iran could do. But I think the bottom line is this.
Right.
Mr. Trump needs an off-ramp. He needs an honorable exit. And as of now, that is not available.
And I think, sir, we're short on time, but I think each of you would agree that bombing Kharg Islands may not really be the honorable solution that US is looking for. And I think the world would really find US quite isolated if that was supposed to have happened. Ujjwal Singh Bhatia, Major General Sudhakar Ji, as well as Professor Swaran Singh, thank you so much for joining us. And in On Point 4, we see how people across India are facing severe difficulties due to the non-availability of LPG cylinders, what the government says and what the ground reality is. The shortage of LPG cylinders has begun to impact restaurants and hotels across Mumbai. Many establishments have run out of commercial LPG, forcing some to temporarily shut operations, while others have reduced their menu due to limited cooking capacity. In several cases, hotel owners have been forced to turn to traditional methods of cooking using coal and firewood to prepare food for customers. In fact, in Matunga, the well-known Money's Cafe has also been affected by the shortage. Food at the restaurant's kitchen is currently being prepared on a traditional stove using coal and firewood instead of LPG.
मुंबई के होटल हो, ढाबा हो या फिर रेस्टोरेंट हो, वहां पर एलपीजी वहां पर नहीं पहुंच रहा है। राज्य सरकार भले ही कह रहा है कि एलपीजी वहां पर पहुंच जाएगा, लेकिन अब तक होटल इंडस्ट्री के लिए एलपीजी नहीं पहुंच पा रहा है। इस समय हम मौजूद हैं माटुंगा के एक किचन में। यहाँ पर ये मनीष कैफे का ये किचन है और यहाँ पर देख सकते हैं कि यहाँ पर सबसे पहले कोयले के ऊपर और लकड़ी के ऊपर यहाँ पर सिगड़ी जल रही है और यहाँ पर ये बन रहा है। क्या बन रहा है यहाँ पर?
ये मशरूम बन रहा है।
मशरूम बन रहा है।
मशरूम कढ़ाई।
अच्छा, कब से गैस नहीं है?
अभी 4 दिन हो गए। 4 दिन से गैस है ही नहीं। इसके लिए थोड़ा कुछ हम लोग माल बन जाते हैं। थोड़ा ज़्यादा बनता था, अभी वो सब कुछ बंद किया। जो मेन है सांभर, अभी जो एक बाजी दाल और वो पुलाव बिरयानी सादा राइस उतना दे रहा है।
अच्छा, ये देखिए यहाँ पर मशरूम बन रहा है। यहाँ पर देखिए पुलाव बन चुका है, पुलाव बनकर तैयार है और इस चूल्हे पर यहाँ पर ये लोग काम कर रहे हैं। आप हमें बताइए कि कितना मुश्किल होता है इन चूल्हे के सामने काम करना?
बहुत मुश्किल होता है, बहुत। इसमें बहुत देख सकता है कितना धुआं हो रहा है। अभी से 3-4 दिन से हम लोग बहुत परेशान हो गया। हाँ, अभी हमारा बहुत सारा आइटम था वो भी बंद किया है। 2-3 आइटम खाली चालू किया है। हमारा सांभर और राइस में बहुत स्पेशल आइटम रहता है वो भी बंद है। खाली सेट बोल रहा है जो हो सकता है। इसमें लेट होता है ना, ये तो सब आइटम चालू कर सकता है, लेकिन लेट हो रहा है करके हम लोग ये 2-3 आइटम बनाता है।
अच्छा, ये देखिए मैं कैमरामैन को कहूँगा अंदर देखिए, वहाँ बीस कर लिए हैं। ये देखिए सामने जो इलेक्ट्रिक पर यहाँ पर इडली बन रही है, यहाँ पर इलेक्ट्रिक से चटनी बन रही है। गैस कनेक्शन यहाँ पर नहीं है। हमारे साथ यहाँ पर मौजूद है कुमार नाडर जो मालिक है मनीष कैफे के। आप हमें बताइए सर कि क्या क्या मुश्किल हो रही है फिलहाल?
अभी फिलहाल क्या है, थोड़ा लंच बनाने का, थोड़ा वैरायटी राइस बनाने में दिक्कत हो रहा है। तो 4-5 वैरायटी राइस बनाता था हम लोग, अभी 2-3 वैरायटी राइस ही बनाता है। अभी लंच नहीं बना रहा, उसके बदले दाल राइस बना रहा है। दाल राइस एक सब्जी बना रहा है, पहला 2-3 सब्जी बनाता था। अभी क्या इसमें थोड़ा समय लगता बनाने के लिए, इसके लिए वो सब बंद कर दिया मैंने। तो अभी बोलता है क्या 1-2 दिन में और हमको टाइम दिया है, मिल जाएगा करके। हमारा एजेंट से बात होते रहता है गैस के लिए, मिलेगा तो ज़रा पता ही है करके। हम कुकिंग करके रखा है ऑलरेडी, खोल के रखा है कमर्शियल का। अगर मिल जाएगा तो हम चालू कर देगा, लेकिन अभी तक मिला नहीं है।
अब गैस नहीं है तो आप लकड़ी का इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं, कोयले का इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं, खर्चा बढ़ गया क्या?
खर्चा तो ज़्यादा नहीं बढ़ा, थोड़ा टाइम वेस्ट हो रहा है बस। खर्चा तो ज़्यादा इतना नहीं है, सेम ही होएगा, टाइम खाली वेस्ट हो रहा है बस। बाकी ठीक है, बाकी इतना कुछ तकलीफ नहीं है, बाकी ठीक है।
तो देखा आपने, मुंबई की जो होटल इंडस्ट्री है वो मुश्किलों के दौर से यहाँ पर गुजर रही है, क्योंकि एलपीजी का सप्लाई यहाँ पर पूरी